A warm welcome to yet another edition of the Magpie Circle podcast. We're going to be breaking new ground today. We're going back to the early swinging 60s. Well, I think they were swinging. I was about 2 years old at the time. We're going to get up close and personal with a former Notts County player, Brian Bates, who made over 140 appearances for the club throughout the 60s. He was around in the early 60s, so no one's been back as far as that before. And we're also going to talk, which I think is very interesting, about your time setting up Notts' Academy. You were the first academy director when it was set up in 1998 under Sam Allardyce. You've got some great stories. You were kind of boots on the ground spotting players. And I want us to talk through a very interesting story. He's won the Premier League. He's a Nottingham lad. He never played for us. But Wes Morgan was first involved with a professional football club with Notts County, and you were heavily involved in that. And you wanted to keep him, but he was released, as we were talking earlier. Wait for this, everyone, because he had a large backside. Can't believe it, can you? Anyway, a very warm welcome, Brian Bates.
Thank you, Paul.
Right, that's the big build-up. Do you like the shirt, by the way?
It's a bit tight fitting on you, but yeah.
It's only a small. Hey, even 1963, you'd have been playing in one of these.
I can see that the logo on there. It was, I think, the Nottingham City coat of arms.
That's it. I mean, to give an idea of how long ago it was, this sadly is not an original shirt from 1963. It is a remake, but even a remake is over 40 years old. So it was quite some time ago. Want to obviously talk about that era, because you would have played with Jeff Astle among many others. But first, I want you to give us some insight into how Notts County can operate successfully, attracting, developing and nurturing young talent, because it's been a bit of a hot topic for a decade, maybe 2 decades at Notts now. And I want us just to explore a case study, if you like, of Wes Morgan. So Wes is a Nottingham lad. As we know, he's won a Premier League title with Leicester City. Not so many people will know Notts County had him first. So just talk to me about that era, that time, with a young teenage Wes Morgan.
Well, it was just brought to, normally when you recruited young players, and they say the person who brought him in, the scout, who would be local, and said, I've got a good player here, Brian, we've got to have a look at him. It was always been my decision at the end, if we're going to take the youngster or not. Obviously, I'd always confer with the scout who brought him in. And that's exactly what happened with Les. I did recruit some very, very good local people who knew local talent. And he said, yeah, got a good player here, but I can't believe how Wes had been missed, because I'm pretty sure, without going back through my records, he was 14 when we brought him in. Now, most clubs probably wouldn't look at a 14-year-old saying, oh no, it's too late, etc. Anyway, Wes came in, and yeah, at that time he was a bit podgy, but he got good feet. We liked the look of him, and we took him on. So then he was, a Notts County player, and he was with us only 18 months. Before then, we had to make a decision. They were the rules and regulations. Someone in the last year at school, I think we had to let them know by, what would it be? March time, I think at the latest, whether we're going to take him on or release. And, we had the meeting with regard to players. Wes was one of them, right? It wasn't just my say at all, whether we took Wes or any other player for that. And I could have been outvoted. Yeah, we never came to a vote because, you would argue and discuss your pitch kind of thing. But I was kind of outvoted on this one. And so we didn't take Wes. And I was very disappointed.
So you thought Wes had what it took to be a successful professional footballer?
Oh, definitely.
Good
Yeah.
character, good lad. From the
Oh,
Meadows, wasn't he?
absolutely smashing that. You know, you couldn't have wanted a better lad, because that's part of recruitment. You want people with good character, right, good standards, but equally, a bit of fun about them as well. You know, not too serious or anything. Works hard, and and that's how it was with Wes. But I was, when this happens in a club, Paul, and you see that youngster get on somewhere else. Now, a lot of people in football would hate that because they've turned them down or etc. But I love that. I'm so pleased that they've got on somewhere else, and proved certain people wrong elsewhere. And
So,
Wes is a classic.
and I think you'd also mentioned to me that you helped play a part in placing him and getting him. Although Notts County had taken a collective decision to release him, you were still a little bit involved in helping him get fixed up elsewhere. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was always like part of my role specifically there, especially with the history of education behind me as well. But if someone was released, we did everything right. It wasn't just a letter job or anything else. We discussed their future, and whether they wanted to go into further education or we would help them there. And we did with Wes at South Notts College, and helped him as well at Dunkirk. That's where he went to play. We're so pleased he did that, but then not so pleased when he went over the bridge to Forest. No, that's not true. I was pleased as well, and since then it's been a revelation, hasn't he? And as a role model, tremendous. Turned down, disappointed, did well elsewhere.
He must have been very disappointed when he was released. Yeah.
He was, yeah. But I had a chat with his I think it was his relatives with Wes as well. But we talked it through, and I always say to people there, Paul, it's not the end of the world. This is the whole thing about the academy system at times, all this about taking them young. I've got strong views on this as well. And how do you release an 8-year-old?
Yeah.
You think about that, football clubs do it. And I mean, I haven't got full facts on this, but I would imagine that a lot of them do it very badly.
Well, clearly there have been some high-profile cases recently. An instance of Manchester City where a young man took his own life. And we've had other people on here. We had Paul James Belshaw, Harrogate goalkeeper, who was a mad keen Notts County fan, and Notts shut down their academy about 2005, 2006, cost cutting.
Yes.
He'd been there since the age of 6. He just got a letter. That was it. Just got a letter.
We did at the Notts Academy there. I did quite a lot of in-service work with all the staff, the scouting staff, right, of how they address people and parents and when you're releasing somebody. And to suddenly get that letter, whether it was personally or just coming through the post, you get that as a youngster. And it just breaks them up completely. They are so disappointed because most kids there, they love football, etc. But it's done so poorly. You should really prepare the ground when it comes to release time. You're preparing the ground for youngsters in a time who you are not going to retain. So you're talking to parents all the time. How's Johnny doing then? Well, what do you think? Well, yeah, he's struggling a little bit with the others, and so you're setting the ground, right? So when it does come, it's not just something out of the blue. They know it's right. And if necessary, we used to fix them up with clubs as well, or say go back to your local club, right? It's not the end of the world. just, there's loads of people have come through much later on in the teens. Now do the same. But, well, the FA have got figures and know that of all the youngsters that are released in the academy system, right, and they never kick a ball again. Yeah. And that was not the intention when it started, And I did talk to this once with Howard. The whole aim of the academy system was to develop players, right, and they'd find their standard. So if they started like in a full-time football club, right, and they were released, they would go back to their local club and take with them what they'd learned at the academy. And that was the intention of it all. But that's not how it worked out.
Okay, this is very interesting. And we'll come on to the more light-hearted stuff with the tales of the 60s in a bit. So let's go back to roughly 1998. Howard Wilkinson, Howard, who you mentioned earlier, obviously at Notts under Jimmy Cyril, he was kind of largely developed the whole academy blueprint for football clubs across England. He'd worked with UEFA, so there's a blueprint being created. So you were brought in 1998. Sam Allardyce would have been the manager, and Notts were, clearly it's not the same stature of an academy as a big Premier League club, with Notts' position in the fourth tier at that time, perhaps called a centre of excellence, call it what you will. So you are brought in as that director, head of, to create that. Yeah. Talk to me about the buy-in that you got from Sam, and how did it work?
Well, interesting, this is Paul. I went down to Meadow Lane to see Sam, see if he got any scouting he wanted doing. And he just recruited Bob Shaw, a good friend of mine, Bob, and he stayed there while we were all working there. And and he said, "I'm sorry, Brian," he said, "I've got nothing for you at the present time, but he said, I'll keep in touch or something, etc." And I found out much later, but what he did then, I was doing all the coaching courses also in Nottinghamshire and for the Notts FA, and he just obviously made a few phone calls about me. Now, someone must have said, "Yeah, he's the man for the job," and he phoned me back. The next bit will make you laugh and on anyone else who's watching it. Sam phoned me back. He said, "Brian," he said, "Yeah, I've got just a job for you. It's coming up. It's the director of the Centre of Excellence." I said, "Yeah, I've heard a bit about that. Don't know too much about it." He said, "If you want the job, it's yours. So no applications, nothing like that." He just said, "It's yours if you want it." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "But the downside of it, it's not very much." I said, "What do you mean it's not very much?" I said, "Obviously you've got to surely pay something that's reasonable, He said, "Well, I don't know whether you'll accept this, but, I can pay you 14 grand a year." I said, "Hang on, I spend that on a Saturday night, Sam, for Christ's sake,
He must go to an expensive nightclub and buy a lot of drinks then.
Yeah, and he just said, "Look, I'm sorry." He said, "That's all I can offer you at this time." Because, that was obviously part of his budget, and they had some right humdingers at times, did Sam and Derek, as I've said to you. So I said, "Well, let me think about it." And I came home and talked it over with Val. And because, football staff, you're expected to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as you know.
Absolutely. So, for pennies, for a pittance. Yeah.
So I talked it through with Val, and she said, "Look, if you want to do it, do it." He said, "And then we'll review it each time." So I went back to Sam. I said, "Look, yeah, okay." I said, "I don't know what I'm doing here, but yeah, I'm snapping your hand off it." and that was it. And they got partly a scheme working at Notts at the time, but wasn't very satisfactory. This is what Sam was wanting to sort out now. And I'd say, well, one guy down there at that time, Trevor Powell. Trevor's terrific. He was a qualified prelim coach, not the best, but he was there full time as well, and he did all the admin and the salaries we ended up paying out and things like this. And he was absolutely great, Trevor, as well. So that eased a lot off me, so I could concentrate on the football bit of it, and he could do the rest.
So round about this time, if memory serves, you kind of had, I'm not sure exactly where he was in the system when you arrived. Again, this will be very interesting. You had a bit of a teenage prodigy from the Meadows, Jermaine Pennant. Talk to me about Jermaine.
Well, I'd heard about Jermaine like everyone else at that time. And I think in a sense there with Jermaine, Derek was more interested in getting a good lump sum for him than developing him as a player.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. I mean, I didn't know Jermaine at all, or very well. So it was one of those situations that it really did need looking after Jermaine in a sense there. I mean, times we had to go round to his house in the Meadows and knock him up because he hadn't come in for training early, And
so you did you go, or would you send a member of staff to knock Jermaine up?
No, I went, because I got to know obviously his parents there, and it's one of those. Other members of staff wanted to, I don't know, really kind of give him a lesson to learn and look, you can't carry on like this, etc. And there's a bit of merit in that, but I said, yeah, I think we need a softer approach from that, and that's what happened really.
So what, you would you walk from the ground, because he didn't live that far? Did you get in your car, or what physically happened then?
I just walked over the Rehump Bridge there.
Yes.
The Meadows, knocked on the door. Is Jermaine here? Yeah, he's in bed. Oh, get him out and march him back. But and at home,
what was he like as a kid? What was Jermaine like?
He was if he was in the classroom with me or elsewhere, you would class him as a likable rogue. And that was it. But he wasn't an idiot or anything. He didn't like school. And so that's why I was working at the ground. All the staff at the time were working hard with him, slightly different approaches. And I was a new boy on the patch as such. So,
So when you've knocked him up, right? Okay, and he's come down, does he apologise? Does he just say, I overslept? What were the conversations like?
Well, the usual thing. Oh, dear, I'm sorry about this, Brian. He said, but, I was very tired and, look, you can't carry on like this, Jermaine, because obviously then we could all see he's going to have a bright future.
Did he have prodigious talent at that age?
Yes, yeah, he did, and other people were eyeing him up there, and like I say, and Derek was looking for a big fat fee as well, and because then Sam played him was it in the FA Cup?
Yeah, he played him when he was 16.
That's right. Was it January or February? Yeah, they put him in there just to put him in the showcase.
And so, would Sam talk to you about him and say, this kid, I'm going to play him? What do you think? How did it all work?
Well, he didn't really discuss it with me much because, like I say, I was the new guy there, so I had to set my own standards and everything else, And obviously, gradually over time, it worked. But I persuaded Jermaine with his father. We had him over for lunch, and I'm saying to him, look, if you take my advice, stick here. Sam will put him in the team when he's good and ready. Don't go. And of course, Arsenal was sniffing around, and that was it. And because they got, when they signed Jermaine, Arsenal, they got a pre-season friendly with Notts in '99. I don't know whether you can remember. Yeah. I can remember standing in the tunnel. I saw this team of bloody giants walking out, in full studs, Petit and Adams, all that lot. They were massive. I've never seen such a big side in my life, And so in that sense, I think Derek did win out of it in terms of what he got in the end. And to be fair, when you look back and think, Christ, Jermaine actually played in a Champions League final. It was at Liverpool then, but he didn't have a bad career in the end, did he?
absolutely he didn't. But I've just, and I think, and I spoke at length to Derek for my book, and he was, I remember it, he was very proud of the fact that he got £1 million. £1 million for Jermaine. And was it 2, was it? My son's educating me. Was it 2? Right. It might have been $1 million down and another million or whatever it was. It certainly had 7 noughts after it anyway. And he was very proud of that. And he was also very proud, as you've just mentioned, that he got part of the deal, which David Dein didn't want to do at first, was to commit to a pre-season game. Because Derek worked out getting Arsenal back is worth a 6-figure payday as well. So having haggled presumably till the nth degree on the actual size of the fee, is then right, and we'll have a friendly out of you as well. And you've got to bring your first team. So I recall that talking with Derek, you've said it as well. If you like, cash your chips in very early. And I think that was the reason Sam put him in, wasn't it? To put him a little bit in the shop window.
Absolutely, yeah.
So already we can see during your time there. So we've got Wes Morgan goes on to win Premier League. We've got Jermaine Pennant, established top line Premier League player, played for big clubs. There were other players and youngsters at that time coming through the system. So I'm thinking Leon Best, David McGoldrick. McGoldrick is at Sheffield United at the minute, isn't he? And I'm guessing one of the... What was that like at that time? How much work goes into identifying the players? How much work goes into nurturing them? How much input do you need from the manager so that there's a pathway?
Well, I mean, you've got to have someone supportive of the system to start with, really. And Sam did. Sam wanted that centre of excellence setting up. Now, bearing in mind, obviously, we were kind of struggling club-wise on facilities.
Yeah.
Because the first year of the centre of excellence, we ran it on Wilford Lane there. And blow me, in the meantime, that we'd sorted out a contract to use that facility. In the meantime, then Forest had gone behind everyone's back, and bought them in blooming land and set up the academy down there.
I do remember, because I remember as our Sunday team, we used to be able to play down there.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few pitches, weren't there?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Forest has bought it, it just gets closed down, doesn't it? And becomes private property.
So after the first year, right, we had no home when they started, and setting it all up. Fortunately, I had a contact with the university, Nottingham University, so we played all our games on Sunday mornings down at the university, and they looked after us really well. And so at the end of the day, it wasn't the end of the world for us either. But of course, from those days then, we were always talking about developing the facilities for an academy, and it was all the time I was there. 4 years, we're still discussing it when I left, and they still are now, and which is very sad, really, when you see what was that at the Leicester Academy now, 100 million they spent on that. Oh.
Yeah, golf course. It's an old golf course. Parker used to play golf there when I was at Leicester. When Martin was there, we always used to go and play golf. And it's ironic that Leicester City opened that golf course when it opened as a golf course when I was there in 1995. Martin, all the players, we all went up there and opened it. And lo and behold, 25 years later, Leicester City buy it and convert it into a training ground.
Absolutely, amazing. But we did, considering what we had in those days, we did really well. So we played the matches on a Sunday morning at the university, and we could cater for about 5 or 6 age groups, because very few football league clubs could do that. And then we did the evening sessions down at Boots on the floodlit hockey area.
Yeah, I know,
yeah. And that's where we trained in the week with the different age groups. So, at the end, we did well.
You're heading all this up. Okay. So, ballpark, what was the budget? How much did Derek open up the wallet to say, right, as our centre of excellence, I'll give you X a year?
Well, no, what you get a grant from the
Right. Yeah.
Only,
Derek would like that. Derek would like that.
And fortunately, which had a very sad ending, but one of his fellow directors, lovely fella, Maurice Udell.
Yes, cricket. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, Maurice was like my immediate boss in the sense, I answered back to him and discussed things, and he never interfered or anything like that. Lovely fella. But what he did do, right, much to Derek's, anguish really, he rigged the fence for finance. So Derek couldn't touch it. Otherwise, you'd have had the lot. The lot would have gone, like, for bloody minibuses and kit and everything. Like, I'll never forget that. He was absolutely gutted, Derek was like. But we did help him out, because out of the funding we got, we looked at the salaries. I just told you what I was on.
Yeah.
Trev was on a bit more than me, which I was bloody annoyed about. We put it right in the second year, to be fair. And we did actually pay for, another physio for the youth team and the centre. But poor Derek couldn't have a penny of it, But we did help, like I say, we paid rent for the office and things that were all legitimate we could do. So, he wasn't dischuffed about it, really.
So Best and McGoldrick clearly went on to have very successful careers. I think Simon Francis was another one who down at Bournemouth. A lot of people may not know. He's a West Bridgford, Rushcliffe boy.
Yeah.
So you started to identify and get a few kids coming through, yeah?
Yeah, but obviously it was the first thing I had to do was recruit the staff. And, Trevor had one or two contacts as well, but I just looked through all the educational people I knew who were interested in football, good coaches, right? Others who were interested in watching, scouring everywhere for young players. Because we were competing with Forest, obviously, and Derby. And to be honest, we did really well. I mean, all those players I've mentioned, they were pig sick when they signed for Notts. But I did recruit some really good local people who knew the local scene. Because, what Forest were doing, and Derby to a degree, and I always think this is a big mistake now, Paul, I do. The big clubs, they're still scouring the world. And I'm saying to those, even now, do your local area. They're there. There's kids with ability in the local area, and I still feel that, is not being used. But that's what happens. The big clubs with the big money, they can afford to pay scouts in Europe and elsewhere. But we couldn't. But we got good local people who knew the area, and there were some terrific staff. So, I never claim any kind of praise on that. The best thing I did was recruit the staff.
Okay. So where does Notts County fit in the scheme of things with Nottingham Forest, Derby, Leicester, other clubs going around for talent? And you said you focused on the Nottingham vicinity or Nottinghamshire. Do you all end up going after the same 10, 15 players? Or do you find a little jewel that no one else has clocked? How does it physically work?
Well, often it's a bit of both. Often the more well-off clubs are looking for, the ultimate kind of player if they can. Whereas, then we're bottom of the pile in that sense. But there are players there, Paul. You've just got to know what you're looking for, right? And then you go for it. And, we did have a few differences now and again. I had a few differences with Paul Hart when he was running the Forest Academy. And
go on, how do you mean differences?
Well, they, let me think on this really. Paul he was looking at one of our players, and I got to know this, So, just a general conversation with Sam, I mentioned it to Sam, and he went ape shit, like, oh, sorry, viewers. Right. He went ape, he said, and, he said, right, report him. I said, well, no, there's no need for that, Sam. I know Paul well enough. I've just given him the verbal warning, just to lay off and be careful.
Yeah.
Now, report him, he said. Sam did. So whether he had a permanent dislike for Paul, I don't know. But, I had to report him to the FA.
So you did report him?
Oh, aye, yeah.
And then what happened?
It made me, well, fortunately, it all went quiet. I think Paul got a rap over the knuckles about it. And, but that was it, really.
Is it, because I find this interesting. So is it quite a cutthroat business when you're trying to get a 12, 13, 14, whatever age it is, signed up? Because perhaps not so much then, but now they've got agents already, haven't they, at that age?
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about it. When you've got youngsters, I'm not going down, but, I don't know about the scheme at present, especially in terms of recruiting young players. Yeah.
But in your era, what was it like?
No, in our era, yeah, they the bigger clubs wouldn't take some of the older ones, or for those reasons. So that was an opening for us, because see a player, and you're only looking for a spark. Whatever it is. I mean, it's always criteria today. I mean, you're looking at someone who can run, pace. You're looking at pace, right? Because everything else, you can work with them. Technically, you can work with anybody. And but I mean, they always said when I was playing, or a youngster, and and you as well, maybe, a good big and always beats a good little. But it's true. It's true. So I mean, you've got to be a bit extra when you haven't got a physical kind of a presence, but it's not the be all and end all. Okay,
so where was Sam, for instance, as the manager in this process? Did he not get involved at all? Was he actually saying to you once a week, monthly, have you got someone coming through for me? Yeah, where are we? If I'm looking, I want you to only sign big 14-year-olds that brick out houses for centre halves and all that. So if you're going to go for a goalkeeper, he's got to be big. What sort of input was there from the manager, so to speak?
To be honest, Sam was great. It was really good. He took an active interest. So the Monday morning meetings, obviously, he went right down from the Saturday performance for the first team, and then the youth team, and then we're talking about how did the academy go on yesterday? Who were you playing? Right? Who are the best players in that age group at the present time? Oh no, he took a real interest actually, and
so you must have felt valued and inclusive, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. It really was, and as they developed, now and again he took some of the best youngsters there and stuck them in with the first team's training, because Bestie did it once. They took Bestie in, and all the pros came back absolutely bloody in hysterics, really, because Bestie had nutmegged one of the senior players.
So this is Leon Best, gone on to have a very successful career, Ipswich, variety of places. Yeah.
But but no, sometimes Sam would come down the centre, when we're down there on an evening at Boots. Is probably sometimes just pop in, and no, he was very interested in it, and he believed in the new scheme, and that's why I like Sam a lot. Always.
In your experience, was that the norm, what Sam did, or was he an exception? Are there others out there that just until he's 17 or until he's good enough for the first team, I don't want to know?
I think perhaps it's I sit on the fence airport. It's a mixture of both, and I think perhaps there was more people who don't take any interest. They might want to know what's going on, etc. In those days, but no, I think Sam was probably a bit of an exception there.
Interesting.
Which is good for the centre. Because when he came along, when we had presentation evenings and things like this, and Sam came along, obviously that was brilliant for all the parents and the youngsters. Plus the fact the big bugger had a physical presence, didn't he? Sam walked in the room and the amount of giant comes in, and yeah, I mean,
I find this very, very interesting, and if we talk about the DNA of Notts County, which is clearly different to the DNA of Nottingham Forest, of Leicester City, Derby, because of size of club, competing resources. It's a different DNA. So Jimmy Cyril, you know, we've had Tommy Johnson on the show, and it's on public record. Tommy signed for Notts County, or the deciding factor was because when he come all the way down from Newcastle, where his family wanted him to stay, because when he came down for a training session on a Sunday, aged 12, 13, whatever it was, he couldn't believe it. Because it wasn't a Notts County under-13s coach or an under-14s coach like it was at Newcastle or wherever else he'd been. It was Jimmy Cyril, top flight manager, took the session. And that was the single biggest reason why Tommy disagreed with his father and said, I'm going to move from Newcastle to Nottingham, because the first team manager took that session. And I think if you know, all footballers are human beings, young people are human beings. And I do think, certainly at Notts, the manager has to have a proactive interest, because presumably it must be a massive fillip and helps you as a parent and young players when you can say the manager pops in now and again and he comes down on a Wednesday night or he does this.
No, I agree with you there totally. I agree with you. And coming down there, not just to stand there, you know, to actually, you know, communicate with some of the parents. Again, which Sam did. He'd have a word with so-and-so or what. He wouldn't know them from Adam, but their son was there at the centre. And he always put himself out there. And things like that go down a long way with parents, Paul, you know. And I think really we were fortunate to have Sam there at the start rather than somebody else, because he was interested. And, you know, I think we got on very well, actually, the pair of us. It was really good. And I could divulge a great story to you, but I daren't. But no, but he knew what was going on and he always wanted to be informed, you know.
And also a little bit of light interlude. It's fair to say that Sam was a strong character. Derek was a strong character. You've got your little broom cupboard somewhere in the bowels of Meadow Lane, and you used to hear a few raised voices, didn't you? Tell us about that.
Oh, not half, honestly. Now and again, like on that corridor, there'd be the chairman's office, right, then the manager's office, and they just, excuse me, they just heard suddenly a loud voice would start. And then the rest of us were, you know, who was there, we'd all be standing there now just listening, and they were going at it, hammer and tongue, they were, honestly, you know.
So this would be Sam and Derek arguing.
Oh, no messing about, you know.
And you could all eavesdrop.
Oh yeah, it didn't make any difference, you know, to either of them, you know. And then, sorry, Derek could come storming out like red-faced or whatever, you know. But then the next day, they'd be right as ninepence. You know, it was. I mean, you know, people said to me, "Well, are you going to get on with Pavis then?" I said, "Well, what do you mean I'm going to get on? I get on with most people, and I don't say any different. But if you didn't stand up to him, you know, he, you know, God, he would crush you actually. But it was a hard taskmaster to work for." But no, you know, I ended up getting well with him as well. And the worst bit I had with Sam, and this was a gem, it was Derek's grandson came to the centre. Now, this was one where really, you know, he said to me, "Oh, can you take him down the centre?" And I said, "Yes, okay, Derek," knowing, you know, what was likely to happen. Well, sure enough, like, I think it was, he's 12 or 13 at the time. And he, you know, he just wasn't up to it. Not good at all. So, you know, we set the ground, the path again, you know, so they knew it was coming. I did this personally, you know, so, and just said, "Look, yeah, I think we're all agreed, aren't we?" Yeah, I can't remember his son's name at this stage, but, you know, I think we're all agreed, aren't we, that, you know, is not up to this standard. Let him go back for his local club and play there. Well, I don't know when it was, but the next day I went down the ground, and sure enough, Ryan, in here. and of course, yeah, if I'd have bottled it then, God knows what would have happened. But I didn't. I stood my ground. I said, look, Chairman, I said, he's not up to it. But that's not to say it might not be in the future, So I was full on as well. And just went, oh, all right, and bugger off. Now that was not easy to do, I can assure you. But yeah, when I saw him, when I'd left the centre there, now and again we'd have a laugh about that, and I'd always ask how his grandson was going on. It's funny world.
Before we go back to your playing career very shortly, I don't know whether this is an unfair question, but clearly, with your teaching background at Fareham, you know the patch, yeah. You recruited people who knew where young players were for Notts County, and you produced a veritable long list of players for the club, many of whom unfortunately didn't end up playing too many games. The reality is, for the past decade and more, and let me caveat this, it is more difficult now because you can get, the way the rules are stacked, if you have got a good one, they tend to go before they've even played a game, and you've got a good one, but you can't stop it. So most recently, Kiana Tete went to Tottenham Hotspur, maximum allowed 250,000. He's on his bike. Don Hugh, a young Chinese lad, 250,000. I think it was Wolves, and nothing Notts could do. But you can count on one hand locally produced players. I want to make sure I get this right. I don't think there are any at the minute in Notts' team. Sam Osborne, a few games. Curtis Thompson, Hayden Hollis. I'm looking across at my son for too many others. Colby Bishop came through the system but played a couple of games. The reality also is that Notts County have slipped down, down the rungs of professional football as well. In your opinion, should Notts be producing more young players themselves than they have done?
I think if they can, they should. I mean, I don't know what the scouting system is or anything, but I'm a strong believer that every club, not just Notts, scour the local area, because I'm convinced, like, there's youngsters there, and if you work with them, you might get 1 or 2 or 3 out of it. That's all, but it's worth it. It's worth it on many fronts. If you recruit local people as well, hopefully, they'll still have a support for one of the big clubs. But, they might just pull along to Meadow Lane, and, parents might come along. There's spin-offs from it. But if I was backing it now, I'm sure I'd find out who are the best local scouts, and I'd say, right, what's happening in this area? Because it's all changed again now. The leagues have changed from when I was doing it in '98. But I'm a strong believer in it, Paul. I am. The local talent, I'm sure it's there, but I'm sure others have probably covered the area of the clubs. But I don't know. It's not easy in any shape or form, especially now. I mean, with the money involved, they're all looking for it. Parents are, etc. But I still think there's there's talent about. But
because clearly what happens with these sorts of things, lots of people can play blame games in this whole process, can't they?
Yeah.
The manager can say, I'm not playing any young players because they're not good enough. the academy guy will say they are good enough, the manager won't play them. Further down the line, well, we're doing the best, but the guys that are recruiting the players aren't good enough and they're not getting the right players and there's nothing to do. So everyone kind of runs for cover with these things when you try and initiate it, don't you?
Yeah.
Does the club itself need to proactively set a stall out, to say we are going to grow our own? We want 2 or 3 players in that 20-man squad every year. Do you support, and this happens at some clubs, Colchester do this, where they kind of tell the manager, you've got to have X number of players in your professional squad. It's non-negotiable within reason. It's almost like quotas, positive quotas. Is that something you support? Is that the wrong way because they have to be of a certain talent to be considered? What's your take on it?
Well, I'm very supportive of, recruiting local talent. But it's like anything, Paul, whatever you're doing, whether it's me in a classroom or you there playing around on bloody computers, it doesn't really matter. If you're good enough, right, that's all that matters. But you can't put someone in, just for the sake of a number either. They've got to have the ability to achieve something. And I'm sure you'll agree with that as well.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice if if they can recruit locally, and I'm trying to think. We used to recruit a lot of players, and when I left the academy, we had a fantastic reputation for that, and I was so proud of that. To be honest, that I used to get more letters praising the centre from people who we'd released, and not necessarily taken on. They were very, very pleasing and gratifying, and that's, to me then, that's everything you want to achieve, you've achieved. When you've had situations like that, just gave me so much pleasure. And we produced players, hopefully, not many of them went through to the first team. It's like now over. I mean, Gary Brazil at Forest there, Gary's still, we don't see so much of one another now, but he's doing a great job over there in terms of local talent, and I've not been down to see him for a bit actually, but he's doing really well, and you wish him well.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're fishing in ponds, Forest are going to fish in a different pond to Notts County, because at the end of the day, Forest need players that are only good enough for Championship football. Where we are right now, we need players ultimately that are good enough to be good in the National League. Let's one step at a time.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a Nottingham boy through and through, and several people, and I had this conversation with Dave Regis during his very short period of time as academy head, and we were talking about some of those inner city Nottingham conurbations. The Meadows, we've mentioned 2 great exports, St Anne's. In those areas, and you said it, there is a pool of very raw but natural talent. And one of my mates is from St Anne's, used to play football with him for Gedlin, and it was and he would say there are players there that should be at least going for a trial at Notts County. Maybe not good enough of it, but should be going for a trial. He made a very interesting point to me. He said they need to be going to a pro club for a chance at 9 or 10. He said, because by the time they're 14, he said, there's a real chance they could have got in with the wrong crowd, and it's going to be difficult to get them from the social environment in which they have become to then give them the discipline that's needed to aspire to be a professional footballer, which I thought was a very good point. Which was a very good point.
It is and it isn't that, Paul. To be honest, I'm having the same predicament with my own grandson. So, because of how it's been run over the years, the academies, and I haven't got the experience now of what does happen at other clubs, but I'm not convinced that the academies, right, are or should be set up for very youngsters. I mean, normally, if you're working with a set of youngsters, say 7, 8, 9, right, whatever that may be, it's really entertainment. If you've got their attention, whatever you're doing, you want them to have fun and laughter, etc. But when you're going to tell someone you're a failure at 8 or 9, I find that very hard to accept because I've seen it firsthand. And we've got the same situation with my own grandson, who's 12. He's got tremendous ability playing football and rugby. And we discussed it with my daughter Susie and Simon, father, about going to an academy or he's playing rugby at casuals and loving that, playing with his mates. He plays for a local football team that are okay. They're not doing that well, but he's learning how to lose. Which is not a bad thing either, Paul, as long as it's not a thrashing every week. So I'm like that with him. I mean, it wouldn't be my decision anyway, but they would seek it. But I think, there's no reason for them to be there. I mean, just to give you an example, if you understand how a system works in the academies, right, they've got to have so much playing time. So they could be coaching like twice a week after school, right? They'll play on a Sunday morning. They've got to have a certain amount of playing time. So they might travel, I don't know, 50, 60 miles to get 20 minutes of football. Yeah. You've got all this, and so even though I ran the show at Notts there, I'm not convinced of, I think it was probably better when we could sign youngsters when they were like 14 and not before then, So it's just something to consider and think about. Sometimes I feel like, well, I might visit one or two of these academies and see, because just because you've got a badge doesn't make you a good coach. There's got to be a lot of other factors involved.
Okay.
So, right. Yeah, that's just a personal viewpoint, at this stage.
Very good. Very in-depth. Interesting. Because I think moving forward, one of the keys to unlocking a renaissance for Notts County is going to be sorting out a structure for the club in which more young players are going to play games in the first team than have done, because it's been very paltry. And that's not to point the blame just at an academy, just at a centre. There's a whole series of factors, but whichever way you divide it up, young players from Nottinghamshire, are not coming through at Notts County and playing for the first team and contributing to the success of the first team like they have done in previous decades. And I think it's been a long time since we had it. So let's just hope, and it's a good debate today, that we can start to move on a little bit and recover, I think, lost ground from when the likes of yourself, Jimmy, were there with those players. Let's go.
Paul, just one in there we've not mentioned too much as well, but he did a great job at Notts, and he followed me after I left as youth team coach. But Mickey Walker.
Oh, absolutely. Mickey's an integral part of that for decades. Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so. And we were good pals. We did the coaching courses together, etc. We won the Northern Prem Championship together, which was no mean feat, to be honest. But he worked very hard at Notts, didn't he?
Mick's a legend, and you talk to Tommy Martin. And sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? You forget what the rule is, but sometimes you can be, it's talk of where you're brilliant at one job, brilliant at another, but then you kind of get, inverted commas, a bit unfair, over promoted. Now, Mick Walker, running Notts' Youth Academy, assisting as a coach, could have been there for another 10, 15 years. but the progression was such that he became manager, didn't he? And Derek was in his pomp for hire and fire and going through all these things. And so Mick's time duration at Notts was, in my opinion, curtailed prematurely because he got the top job and he did well for a while. Then there's a lull, then he's chopped. And then Russell Slade moves up the pecking order. But I think, you know, I don't think, you know, it's been very difficult for Notts to recover from those people and yourself. And I don't think they ever have. And have that groundwork that you talk about. Anyway, probably upset a few people now, but never mind. It's my show. Brian Bates, the Notts County flying winger.
Oh, without doubt, blimey.
1963 to 1968, 137 appearances, 25 goals. I think it's fair to say your Notts career didn't get off to the greatest of starts in the first team, did it? April 18, debut, away, Bristol Rovers. Jeff Astle was playing.
Yeah.
Can you remember the score?
4-0.
Which way?
Well, Alfred Biggs did play for them and not us.
Who? Alfie Biggs? Who's he?
No, who got the hat trick?
I don't know. So I've just never heard of Alfie Biggs. You said he was like he was an England international or something.
No, he scored a hat trick. I can remember, you know, Astle played, and also making his debut that day was John Froggatt. So I know Froggy, you know, well, I mean, we played at Boston together as well, you know. No, I mean, because that was the first year that I'd gone to college. So I went to college in London. Borough Road. So as you just go down Notts in the holidays training.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was it, you see. But also 60 that season, I'm pretty sure the manager was Eddie Lowe.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was Eddie then, because Eddie. Oh, that's it. Yeah, the end of the 63 season. I was at Forest for 2 years, from 61 to 63, playing in their youth team. Yeah, I played with Ian Moore and Sammy, and you know, and they were all a bit disappointed that Forest didn't offer me a contract. So straight away, Notts came over, and I went down the ground to meet Tim Coleman. So this was like right at the end of the season, and went to see Tim, you know, the manager at that time. He's painting the bloody stand.
We multitask at Notts.
Absolutely. He was painting the stand. And you know, it was great. I loved him. I think he was the best manager I played for at Notts. You know, a real great guy. And I think sometimes the players let him down a bit. But yeah, I loved him to bits. And
what was your first salary? How much were you paid? I bet it weren't a lot.
My first salary, not 20 quid. It was 20 quid a week.
Okay, so
that was when I left college as well. That was in 1966. What a year that was.
World Cup.
Oh, absolutely. You know, but it's interesting. I mean, I think I saw 7 managers in 6 years. That includes the ones who came in. I mean, I can remember whichever year it was, 67, 68, one of those, that caretaker group. Tommy Lawton came in. Tommy was one of those just for a very, very short period, you know, and
he was chief scout, wasn't he, round about the 60s, mid to late 60s?
He
Tommy?
was, yeah. But then he came in, and I'll never forget it, because we played Doncaster in the FA Cup, and I was at a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, right, and fluffed it. And the next when we're down next, Tommy took me out onto the pitch. I'll never forget it, like, and the other lads didn't as well. That, you know, they don't. But he was trying to show me how to beat a goalkeeper one-on-one, and you know, so being polite as I am, like I was taking note, etc. But watching from the stands everywhere else, all the rest of them were sniggering away, You know, there's Tommy going 1-on-1 on the goalkeeper, like, who was letting him get past all right, and then flattening me. Oh dear. Yeah, but there were some poor managers in that first spell, Paul. But yeah,
It were tough times for the club, wasn't it? Because it was kind of, because now when you first got there, 63, I think that had Tony Haley gone by then or not?
Yeah, the year before that, they'd finished 5th.
Yeah,
in the 3rd division.
They had Tony Haley and Jeff Astle, didn't they? Coming through. Talk about goal scoring. Going back to the thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
local boys. Yeah, Jeff Astle was from Eastwood, coming through the system.
Went first, and then Astle went at the end of that season. So at least I had the privilege of playing one game with Astle. But there again, when you're talking players like that, Astle, Dick Edwards. Dick was a great player.
Big lad, wasn't he, for that era? Big, strong boy.
You ought to get him on and talk about one of the stories of all-time classic that you will not beat anywhere, about forgetting boots. And do you want to hear it?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, it's banter, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, Dick, he was the one that was helped me get to Mansfield. Yeah.
Okay, at the end of your career at Notts, you moved to
Mansfield. Yeah, and so we got on well, but anyway, Dick went to Villa and then Torquay, and he could have played anywhere. Dick, very versatile, centre half, centre forward, whatever. Great player, and he had other interests as well. I won't go into those. And he went on trial to Man United from Torquay. They played him in the pre-season, and they liked the look of it. This was going to be Dick's big break. Anyway, they were up in Scotland. Now, who were they playing? I'm not quite sure whether it was one of the big clubs, whether it was Celtic or Rangers. But let's say it was Hibernian. Don't matter. Anyway, they went up there. They stayed overnight, right? And then they went to the ground like for a 7:30 kickoff like that. And Dick's saying, I can't believe it here. Here I am with all these Bess, Lauren, Charlton, Tony Dunn. He said they're all there. And we're in the dressing room, etc. And he said, suddenly, my heart stopped. And he said, I don't believe this. How could this have happened? And they're all getting ready now. And suddenly Dick has to say, who was it who managed him? I'm not quite sure who would that been then. But anyway, he said to the gaffer, excuse me, gaffer, and I forgot my boots.
Your big chance at Manchester United.
Your big chance that all the stars were in the dressing room like that, are there, and now they're all roaring with bloody laughter. Dick's forgot his bloody boots. What they did, they had to delay the kickoff, sent an outrider out to the hotel, fetch his boots, bring them back. And of course, then they're all saying, well, don't worry about it, Dick. Tony Dunn's saying, they were going to play him as a central defender as well. He said, yeah, look, don't you worry about him doing anything. If he gets past you, Dick, he won't get past me because I can catch bloody pigeons, so no problem. But I mean, that's an all-time classic, isn't it? Top club in the world, and you forget your boots. Yeah.
So talk to me about you. So you were what, flying little winger, correct?
Yeah, I like to think so. It's funny enough how people influence you. That's when I made my debut. That was like. In the holidays, I'd come back from college. It was Easter time as well, end of the season, and Tim he'd like me, Tim. And he just let me play. He just let me play as a wide player. And he just said, "Yeah, just do your stuff, etc." And I did. Not all the while, obviously, but and then you get other types of manager who came in, Jack Burkitt. And a lovely fellow, Jack. Don't get me wrong.
Won the FA Cup with Forest.
Yeah.
And here, small world. I grew up in Collick Woods. My local post office, sub postmaster. So we're talking early 70s. The person that ran our local post office, Jack Burkitt.
Well, that reminds me of another story, but we'll come back to that. But Jack, he just wanted wingers to play in straight lines. It sounds silly now, just up and down the flanks, right? and nothing else. And really, I just lost my sparkle for a season, when he did that. And then 65, 66, my last year at college, that's when, Tim was manager again then. And I was on fire that year.
I pulled some stats off. I don't know, you will remember these. So 65, 66, 10 goals in 26 games, 3 doubles, so 2 goals in a game, right? In the first 8 games. So you scored 2 goals in the first 8 games 3 times.
I remember.
Your starter for 10, who were the 3 teams?
Stockport.
Yes.
That was the first one, I think. Stockport.
Correct.
Chester.
Correct.
Who was the third one? Port Vale.
And we haven't rehearsed that, have we?
No.
We haven't rehearsed that. I didn't tell you that. Well done.
Fun. The game against Stockport, now this is a gem. In the holidays, I used to do, and a lot of the players did it.
You had a lot of holidays, didn't you?
Well, definitely college holidays. But we used to work in the summer. I mean, at Tooley's in the Snetton market.
Absolutely. My good friend, his grandfather, Laurie, used to run the greengrocers, Snetton Market, wholesale.
That's right, and anyway, that Monday, it was a Monday night, the Stockport game, I remember it well, and I was up at 6, drove straight down the market, I didn't have breakfast or anything, I just drove straight down the market, loaded up one of the wagons and off I did, delivering veg, etc. And then Bill Tooley there, was it Bill? He let me start and finish early so I could get down the ground and do a bit of training with the lads. But, so I just did the same that day down the ground. And the next thing I know, Tim has called me in and said, right, okay, you're playing tonight at Stockport, get home, have a kip, be back down here for 4 o'clock or something. And that was it. And I think I've got somewhere in my scrapbook, Colin Slayton was reporting on that. And the lead headline in there was Bates's 18-hour day. And that's true what happened, I scored 2
good. Very good.
That season, I had a real good season, a very good season until I got an injury at the end of the year, which was very unfortunate because other things were taking shape elsewhere. Not that I knew about it. So that's how it finished for me. I played the last game, but but I did play very well. But the year after, I think that was it. That's when Jack Burkett came in.
Yeah.
And he just I don't know. I wasn't happy with him. How he wanted me to play, etc. And it wasn't so good then.
What was life like as a lower league professional footballer at Notts County in those 60s? Clearly, you're not on a lot of money. You're having to work on the markets, and Mick Jones has told stories to us about, a lot of the players were, I think even Don did when he first came. Les did a few stints on the markets as well. We know shirts that, you had to make do with literally one set of kit all year. Did you used to get an allowance to go down to Redmayne and Todd's to buy 1 pair of boots and that was it? And what just give us a bit of a...
I just suppose in a sense, I was 20 at the time, 19, 20. You just accept that. It's the senior pros there who are the influence in the dressing room. And, so we just got on with it. The youngsters kind of thing, you get your kit, like you say, 1 set and your boots. And that was it. You just got on with it. Unfortunately for us in that period, we went through a bad time, the club did. With all those managers, that I mentioned there as well, and it was just really sad until, the spark came when Jimmy came, and we all thinking well, where's he come from? That Scottish guy, he came up from Brentford, didn't he? To Notts.
Were you still there when Jimmy came then?
No, I'd just left. When
Just
Jimmy
right.
came, I'd gone to Mansfield, and of course I was absolutely delighted there because, oh dear, we had a great side at Mansfield. With Stuart Bowman, Dudley Roberts, and all that lot playing. It was, and I was a regular in the first team until I got my second injury at Christmas. And coming to football in those days, Paul, there was no qualified physios. All
No.
it was a trainer, bucket of water, jump on couch, lad. And that's what poor old Sid Carter did with me. Jumped on the couch Sunday morning, put the lamp on it. So my ankle went from literally, I don't know, this kind of size to the size of a bloody bucket. And it never recovered to play full-time football again.
Talking trainers, we shouldn't miss this. So Jack Wheeler was already trainer, wasn't he, by then at Notts?
Oh yeah.
So what was Jack like? Playing his ukulele and
Jack was, yeah. I mean, we all respected Jack, and his favourite thing is he made mistakes. You bloody man. And there's two things really I could slaughter Jack. And one was playing at Hartlepool. We'll never, because in those days, like when we were kind of so poor, that's not the right word, but we just got on with things and we could laugh things off easily, because we're all in the same boat, etc. And this happened as well at Hartlepool's. I can remember then, can't remember the date when it was, but we'd lost and we played really poorly like that. And Jack was when Jack was caretaker
manager. Yeah.
Anyway, he's ranting and raving there. Said, you're a disgrace today, you lot, whatsoever. He went on and on like that. And he just picked a shirt up off the floor and said, look at this shirt. Gosh, look at it. The amount of effort here, it's as dry as a bone. Well, what was the number on the back of the shirt? Number 7. It was my bloody shirt. So the rest of the lads were in absolute hysterics, So, I didn't enjoy that, Jack, at all. But no, I mean, and the other one was when I left the club, 68, 69. That's when Don came that year. Don and Wertho, they both came.
Now, what was Don like then? So what was Don, when Don walked into, lots of people couldn't believe he'd left Middlesbrough, but he had. But did you know straight away he was a cut above or not?
You soon did know.
Because he told you.
Absolutely. No uncertain terms there. When he was playing, you were playing with him. Fortunately, I got on well with Don. I think he rated me as a player. So I thought, hey, thanks very much, Don. Because it could have been, he was vicious to some people. He'd be saying, Paul Mace, you're effing useless here. Just give me the ball. And just honestly, he would slaughter players. And he did that all his career. It's a wonder no one actually, put him in bloody hospital. But that's what made him a really good player, and he was. I've got to give him credit on that, and he achieved very well, But not easy to play with at all. And the final thing really, it's pity he wasn't there. They talk about near post, balls going in, etc. I actually invented near post corners. Because in those days, if you wore number 7 or number 11, you took the corners. That was what wingers did.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the mud eats we played on the leather balls, I couldn't get the ball beyond the bloody near post. So that's
very interesting, because I was just going to bring up, as a winger, you cross the ball. In your first year, Jeff Astle. And of course, there has been retrospectively a huge debate about heading the heavy balls and the damage it caused. And Jeff was kind of, thanks to the campaign of his daughter, Dawn. His brother, by the way, he wrote in to request a copy of my book. I think his brother still lives in Eastwood, I believe. He certainly did up till a couple of years ago. And so the family there have raised the whole awareness and the issues surrounding that. So I wanted to ask you, as a winger, and you're crossing the ball, what was it like? Were these real, you know, on a muddy pitch, a disgrace. What was it like?
Oh no, they were. I mean, as a youngster playing football, first of all, like my dad ran a local side, and you know, they were the worst balls first. They had a lace in it,
Yes.
right, to put the bladder inside and blow it up. Now, one thing, if you headed that lace, I mean, that bloody gave you concussion straight away. Honestly, you know, if you caught it right on the lace there, I guarantee you're standing there for a minute, shaking your head like this. And,
Really?
yeah, honestly. And if they were wet, well, that was even worse, you know. So, but gradually to the mid 60s, the ball improved a bit from that old red, you know, leather ball that
Yeah.
soaked up all the water. You know, so no wonder, because I used to hate, well, I got other players to take the corners in the end, because, you know, I knew full well, you know, I just couldn't get him. Yeah.
Really? So you're a winger and you didn't want to take corners?
No, not at all. I'm happy going past players to the byline and clipping them in. Yeah, but taking a corner or in awful conditions, I struggled. So it was, you know, whoever wanted. Fortunately, mind you, or unfortunately, I left just as Don wanted to take bloody everything.
Everything. Throw-ins, goal kicks.
Yeah, absolutely. But great memories in that sense, because the banter of the players, you know, because we're all in the mess together. I think we all realised, you know, we weren't good enough really to do something in that division until Jimmy came. Funny enough, after I left, no, when I was youth team coach there with Jimmy, I didn't know him that well, but I knew of him, and you know, so I was working for him.
Yes, you sort of came back, youth team coach.
Yeah.
Early mid-70s. Yeah.
And so we're playing at Widmerpool then, the A team as it was.
Oh, right, yeah.
And you know, I managed to take some players I knew from the area, kind of, yeah.
Widmerpool or Stoke Bardolph?
Widmerpool.
Okay, because they had the training ground at Stoke Bardolph, didn't they, in those 70s?
Yeah, that was after them. But yeah, we played at Widmerpool there, and Jimmy came up to watch, and you know, and we were doing well actually in the Midland Intermediate League. You know, as an A team, we were doing really well. And anyway, Jimmy was watching, and we went in at half time, and Jimmy surprised me when he came waltzing into the dressing room. I thought, oh, blimey. Suddenly there was sudden bloody silence from everybody in the room. And I said, would you like to speak, Gaffer? He said, no, you carry on, Brain. He said, you carry whatever you were saying. Like, and so I had my say first, which I respected Jimmy for as well. Then he came in, and straight away, his language was... I had no swearing in the team, no talking to referee or this lot, like, and then Jimmy comes in, right, and he's effing and blind to this lot. But in the few months I was there with him, you know, I got a real good respect for him. You know, his work ethic. Oh, you know, and that made him, you know, so successful, and which he deserved. You know, but he was such a character, wasn't he, as well, in his own right. You know, he was. Well, I've got another gem for you in the youth team. You'll like this one.
Yeah.
We were playing Forest Day, and I had a reasonable side out, but Dave McVeigh was playing for me, recovering from injury. We played down at Grove Farm by the River Trent. It was blowing a gale straight down the pitch, you know. And I saw the Forest lads come out there, and of course they were playing a trialist goalkeeper, and I knew the keeper. You know, he played for the grammar schools, and he wasn't that tall, you know, average height. So I made Dave McVeigh captain, and said, Dave, now whatever happens, and pray for this. If you win the toss, we play with the wind. Oh, why? I said, look, it's blowing a gale. Do as I say. You play. Anyway, he won the toss, played with the wind. And I felt sorry for this lad in goal, because every time he got a corner, I stood McVeigh on him.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, we're putting the ball in, like, in that 6-yard box under the bar. Half time, we're 5-0 up. Oh, no. You've got no chance in that win, really. That was a good excuse for calling the game off. Anyway, we ended up, I said, all we had to do second half was now just defend, try and play a bit out to relieve the pressure. And we did. We won 5-1. Now, Cloughie used to work in Bramcote Post Office. He bought the post office, and his brother Gerald ran it, and with me living in Bramcote, Sunday mornings sometimes I pop in, get a paper on the pretext is just saying hello to Brian Clough, etc. Well, I went in this particular day, I'm thinking I'm going to go in there and I'm a bit smug, and sure enough I went in there and Cloughie's there, and I went to, morning Mr. Clough. He went, morning young man. You had a good result against us yesterday, didn't you? I said, yeah, we did really. He said, it won't bloody happen again. Honestly, when I went to work for Forest at the end of the 70s, when Ron moved over there, he asked me to go over there as well, I got on, for some reason, I got on really well with Cloughie. I've got so many funny stories, about him. But I love the guy, Paul. I did, honestly,
Everyone you speak to always has a Clough story, and everyone tries and does his accent as well. That's the thing, and it's the same with Jimmy. Everyone tries and does it, and I noticed you did both of those. Before you go, clearly Howard Wilkinson was personally the reason we got into the top flight. Jimmy had got us to a certain level, and then we needed a bit more. And Don Masson would say that in 1980-81 season to get us promoted. And Howard as a coach, as a manager, 3 promotions with Notts, with Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds, all into the top flight. Won the Premier League with Leeds. So master manager. But as a player, he didn't necessarily have the most glittering career, did he? And didn't you used to play? 1
minute, Paul, please. You go to the back door, please. Someone delivering something later.
This is live, folks. Right. So hopefully you get your delivery. So it's probably Howard coming to have a word because he knows the story we're about to tell. But Howard wasn't necessarily the star performer when you were at Boston United with him, was he?
Oh, God. I know what I'll tell you the story again if you want.
Yeah. That's where I'm leading you on. Go on. So a young Howard Wilkinson for Boston United. He was a young lad. You were more of a senior player at that point?
Yeah, I was only this will be 1970. Jim Smith was manager.
Jim Smith, Derby, yeah.
Yeah, he signed Howard, he signed myself. I played as a striker at Boston with Froggy. We scored goals for fun, actually. And we're playing this particular game, and Howard's farting about on the ball all the time. It was like, Howard, get up and down that flank and cross it to those that can play.
You're giving it the old Don Masson, were you? You took a leaf out of Don's book.
Oh, absolutely. And oh dear. But
did Howard have much to say for himself, or do as he was told?
No, he didn't. Because he didn't have a lot, Howard, as a player. Strong running wide player. I'll give him credit there. He was always on about coaching. He was into the coaching big time, like Howard was. And he said, "Yeah, you want to get on the course and do this course and do that course, etc." And some of them were going, "What do we want coaching for, etc." But to be fair to Howard, he could see what was developing, and he came and proved it right. I mean, to achieve what he did at Leeds, for instance, was, and it's after that, actually, I went and did a bit of scouting for him, for Howard.
You? Yeah? So he obviously forgave you for telling him what he shouldn't be doing at Boston.
Oh, there's no question about it. Like, he just took it. He had to. He had no choice, like, with me around, and Froggy and John Fanning. Oh, dear. We were murder at times. But not an easy man to get on with. Or was it the other way round? I'm not sure, Paul. Oh, dear.
Interesting. It's been a great chat. I think we should finish off with kind of springboarding everything to current day, because we've spoke about you as a academy director, coach, as a player, but of course you've been very involved with the Notts County Former Players Association as well, haven't you? Sort of bringing everything full circle and retaining those links with the club.
Yeah, it's just we all find it a bit sad at present, because the people that we've been holding it together, myself, Les, Colin, you know that from when we're organising the dinner as well, and we just find it very sad that we've got to move in different directions now, I think, and I think we can. I think it's probably got to be something that's club related now. They've got to take some responsibility, because the people that founded this on Arthur Mann's accident, we're all getting older.
Yeah.
And, and everybody is like, and we up to kind of past Tommy's era, people have been dropping out, by the wayside really, and I find this sad really that the modern player today, and I might be being a bit harsh here, but they're not really interested in a former players association. They just want to come to the club, play their football, get a contract, right? Play that one out, move on. We just can't get other people too interested. Now, obviously, this year has been awful with the COVID anyway. So nothing's happened, but it's something we've got to address if we're going to carry on. And we don't want that. We don't want it to fold at all. But that's just an idea that if we can get someone at the club to take responsibility, we can still be like a working party, working within that. And I think, we might be looking in that direction as soon as we're capable.
Yeah, I mean, the blueprint of when you set that association up, late
99.
Yeah. Was excellent. And I was at Leicester City for 13, 14 years. And one of the better things I did there, together with Alan Birchinall, Notts County fan originally, was set up the Leicester City Ex-Players Association. And very much the blueprint and the model for that was based on what you'd done at Notts. I remember taking my dad when he was alive. It was something like his 80th birthday, and so I got a table together for him to go to, and that would have been about 2000, something like that. And it was virtually impossible to get a ticket. I kind of had to beg, steal, and borrow to get a table. The events were that popular. Great turnout by the players, and as you know, I sponsored the association for 5, 6 years, and it's the least I can do. And so, we must do everything that we can to keep it going. Les obviously has a very good idea, and I think it's kind of sort of out in the public domain, that this year it will be the 50th anniversary of the 4th Division Championship team under Jimmy Cyril, 1971, 2021, which is a big milestone. That's a big milestone, and Les is working on that as we speak. I guess one of the challenges is that the last 20 years of Notts County history has been very different to the previous 20, when we had the whole Jimmy Cyril era, and we also had Neil Warnock, hasn't it? So I don't think that helps. But all the players I speak to, and this is one of the reasons for the podcast, really, is to keep a link between players and supporters. But all the players I speak to all hold Notts in great affection. And I don't think they just pay it lip service when they do these podcasts. They genuinely feel very strongly towards Notts County. I'll give you an example. Kevin Nicholson, top lad, played 3 years for Notts. Great escape goal against Huddersfield, 130 appearances. Now, in the pantheon of Notts County greats, he's probably not in the top 100. But it was a brilliant podcast. And the stories and the banter and the respect and the esteem with which he holds Notts County shone through. And it was a great podcast. So I think there is a huge amount of goodwill towards the club. It's just, it's kind of trying to harness that. And anything and everything where you have, where you have a group of people trying to organise something, it's always a nightmare. You know that as well as I do. It's absolutely, and it takes 20, 30, 40, 50-fold more time, effort, and hours to get it done.
I agree.
The 81, which is my era, I was 18 years old, and as you know, I was sort of quite keen to get that one to recognise that. And I love the fact we did it. It sold out very, very quickly. But clearly there was a malaise with the club about to be relegated. And if I'm honest with you, it gutted me, that we couldn't get an Aki Laatunen back from Finland. Raddy had to ring up the week before because he got a rearranged cup game in Kuwait or wherever he was. Absolutely gutted. Couldn't get some of those players back for the last time. So, it's very, very, very difficult. But as a group, yourself, Les, you've got to try and hang in there and do something. You've got to keep, because it's something that's part of Notts County's DNA. That is something that makes us better, right, than 95% of all the other clubs. I'm not giving any trade secrets away. Nottingham Forest players feel very hard done by, very aggrieved by how their club has treated them over many years. Yeah, they get the European Cup winners together, but you talk to those players, they feel they've not been recognised, and I think Notts, it's a smaller club. It's a more family orientated club in that respect because it's smaller. It's one of our big strengths. So we've got to try and keep it going. We've got to try and keep it going.
Well, we both feel that, Mark, and I think when all this is over, we've just got to sit down again, quite seriously, and say, right, now, where are we going? What do we want to do or achieve? And yes, I mean, we both, I'd hate to see it kind of fold now because of lack of interest or, but like I say, we're not getting any younger either, even though I look about 20 odd, but,
not a day over 28. Hey?
Yeah, I mean, we're both feeling the same, and Colin is as well. We don't want it to fold, but we've just got to ride this out at the present time, haven't we? And then, we can try and sort things out. And
but hopefully we can reverse the process a little bit, because with this 50th anniversary, because that's a special one.
Yeah,
that's a special one.
Yeah, I mean, looking at all the problems we have at the present time, yes, I mean, we know we could do that. It's going to be hard work to do it, but we're just sitting here twiddling our fingers, aren't we, with all this lot to go. And
clearly a huge amount of this is COVID related, but and it's perhaps interesting for people that are watching this, just to get a little bit of an inkling and an insight into the workload, into just the challenges you have of just running an ex-players association. All these things are always infinitely more time consuming than anyone can ever possibly imagine. So hang in there, and we'll keep it going. Brian, thank you ever so much. It's been great. Great listening to you. Very interesting on the whole subject of youth development. Great stories about Sam, Jermaine, Wes Morgan, which is where we started out, and then some of the old banter, the heavy footballs and all the rest of it from the 60s with Notts. Your life really has been very much wrapped up in and around Notts County, hasn't it? From a young age to a senior age.
Oh, absolutely, Paul. It's one of those things. You see, my son, grandson, Ruben, he supports Liverpool, but I've just said, well, nothing wrong with that, Rubes, but you're supporting Notts County, aren't you? Yes, Grandad, right? So that's definitely casting them in concrete, that is, and he'll be there, definitely. But no, it's been nice talking to you, Paul, and what you say at the end there, we're all of the same mind, and obviously, when all this eases off, or when it does, we can get cracking again on things.
That's great. Brian, thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.